With the direction that the Wrong Turn franchise has been heading in throughout my time covering it, you'd think that I'd be tired of covering bad movies at this point, and you'd be right. I'm so tired, please let me sleep. We're 5 movies deep at this point, with 1 more left to go before the reboot. So you'd think that the writers would have started to run out of ideas at this point. We've had prequels, sequels, and well, sequels. And yeah, I guess you could say that the writers have ran out of ideas. Because when you think of Wrong Turn, what comes to mind? Well, apparently, somebody asked themselves that question and thought music festival. Because yeah, they went and made a Wrong Turn movie about a music festival. But not only did they make the movie about a music festival, they had the bright idea to never actually show the music festival. Oh, I can tell this one's gonna be good. The movie begins with a couple of soon-to-be horrific murder victims going at it in a tent. Because let's be honest, it wouldn't be a campy slasher movie if it didn't open up with people going at it. They're then rather rudely interrupted and scared by their group of friends who are all wearing masks that somewhat resemble the killer Mountain Men brothers. The group of friends consists of Billy, Cruz, Julian, Lita and Gus. We learn that they're in the area to not only fornicate in tents, but to visit the local Mountain Men music festival. Their friend Julian explains that the festival exists because apparently back in the early 1800s, the local miners of the town didn't get along too well with the people living in the hills. And apparently it all came to a head one night when the Mountain Men people came down into the town and massacred every last one of them. Except Julian then immediately contradicts himself by saying that no bodies were ever found. I don't think you can say it's a massacre if there's no evidence of, well, a massacre. I think you kinda need bodies for one of those. It then cuts to a reporter character doing a broadcast in the local town, a town that is absolutely definitely a real town and totally not a set. Right, guys? And after she's done being an absolutely horrible person to her co-workers, she decides to go for a run in the nearby woods. And you know what that means. Dinner time for the Cannibal Brothers. She bumps into who she thinks is just a local kid wearing a Mountain Man costume for the music festival. Still can't believe they made a festival about that. What's next? A festival to celebrate Genghis Khan's atrocities? Three Finger quickly turns her into Four Fingers, and as she attempts to run away, she bumps into a man named Maynard, played by Doug Bradley of all people, the guy who played Pinhead. Bet he felt like a right pinhead after appearing in this. He hides with her in a bush as the brothers walk by, and just when she thinks the coast is clear, he grabs an axe and buries it into her stomach before then calling the brothers over to help with the body. So if Maynard is supposed to be the brothers' father, or at the very least their father figure, that means the movie must take place before Wrong Turn 2, as he dies in that movie, and we later find out that it takes place during 2003, which means it takes place around the time of Wrong Turn 4 and Wrong Turn 1, but it can't be 4, as that's before they came to the woods, and if it's around the time of 1, how come they're absolutely nothing like the characters from that movie? You know what, the more I think about it, the more things don't make sense timeline-wise. It's kind of all over the place, like the quality of these movies. And I think I should really stop thinking too hard about it, to be honest, before I take a wrong turn of my own into oncoming traffic. The group of friends are driving towards the festival when all of a sudden, Maynard steps out into the road, causing the car to swerve and to collide headfirst with a tree. After they all survive the potentially life-threatening situation, they're placed right into another life-threatening situation as Maynard slices Billy's arm with a knife, but proceeds to get his senior citizen knife-swinging ass ruthlessly beat. I'm not really sure what his game plan was here. Stab one of them, play dead. Stab another one of them, play dead. What does he think he is? A possum. We then meet the sheriff and her deputy, who within seconds of being introduced to them, proceed to immediately break the law that they're sworn to uphold by taking a phone call while operating a motor vehicle. They then conveniently arrive, just as Three Finger is about to fire an arrow from the bushes, hold the old man kickers at gunpoint, and then proceed to arrest the pensioner who was just getting his head kicked in. I mean, yeah, he did try to fillet this guy's arm a few seconds ago, but from the sheriff's perspective, she's just stumbled upon a group of ageists committing a hate crime. Arrest this man immediately. The deputy searches the car and finds a stash of drugs that belong to Billy. All the while, the brothers are watching from the tree line, and I'm watching them completely in awe at these glaringly obvious makeup effects across Three Finger's face. Obviously, I know this isn't a real cannibalistic inbreeding mountain man, but that doesn't mean you need to make it obvious by clearly showing the latex effects across his face. One of the officers is made to stay back with the car wreck, which causes the brothers to get visibly giddy with excitement, and then run directly towards the officer with their weapons drawn. They're apparently avid players of Skyrim, as the officer takes an arrow to the knee before they slice both of the man's ears off and finish him by stabbing him in the skull. Ah yeah, just like Skyrim. Back in the totally real, I promise it's not a set town, the old man kickers and the old man have all been placed in jail cells, in a police station that looks like it was pulled right from a Disney Channel show or a 90s sitcom set, in order to save his friends from any trouble, and to get them out of a night spent in a Disney Channel jail cell. Billy opens up to being the owner of the drugs, resulting in the rest of his friends being let out. The sheriff then finds out that Maynard has been on the run for the past 30 years, and calls up the US Marshal's office to inform them. They tell her that someone's going to arrive at 10 AM the next morning to pick him up, meaning that the movie's now conveniently got plenty of time to enact its good old-fashioned hillbilly murder spree, which, let's be honest, is the only reason anybody watches these movies. We see the brothers pulling down the local cell tower, doing their part to stop the war on 5G, before heading to the local power plant to do their part against security guards. But before they can do that, the guard responds to seeing them on the security camera by calling them damn drunk kids. What kind of mutated 6-foot disfigured kids do you have? They tie his arms up and raise him to the power lines, which upon contact with his body, fries him, but also fries the town's power. I kinda feel like it really shouldn't be that easy to take out a whole town's power. But what do I know? I've never killed a man using the town's power lines. And by now, you've basically been exposed to the entire premise of the film. The brothers find a victim, the brothers kill a victim. Unfortunately, the franchise hasn't really evolved since its second entry. Sure, that movie did have the same basic premise as the one previous to it, but it's undeniable that it found a fun and interesting way to spice up the formula. But since then, it's been unapologetically mediocre without even trying to break the mold. And something tells me that the next entry isn't going to do much to change my mind. Maynard gives the typical "they're coming to kill you all" speech, as the sheriff decides to let Mose out, the drunk that's sharing Maynard's cell. But due to her not being able to reach any of her deputies, he decides to hang around to be generic fodder for the brothers to kill. Be a good person and help the sheriff. The freed friends find a motel to spend the night, and Cruz decides to head out to bring some food to Billy, but along the way, she encounters Freefinger wearing a Mountain Man mask, so you won't be able to tell that he's a Mountain Man, I guess. He starts chasing after her, and has apparently unlocked the ability to teleport, as he stabs her in the stomach as she runs right into him. She falls to her knees, and Freefinger begins to play around in her guts, and not in the nice way, before pulling out her internal organs and forcing pieces of them into her mouth. It's like recycling, but for your insides. Julian decides to also go and see Billy, due to Gus playing around in Lita's guts, in the nice way. But in the process, he accidentally drops his knife on the floor, that he was just using to cut up a magazine due to boredom. I too stab random objects when bored. Julian arrives at the police station unharmed, unaware that his friend's insides have been turned to outsides, and realizes that for some reason, Cruz never made it here. Gus and Lita, finish, and we learn that Lita was supposed to be moving to New York soon, and tells Gus that she wants to do it on her own. Wow, she really just dipped and dived? Gus, in his infinite wisdom, upon hearing this, decides that the best thing that he can possibly do right now is to propose. That's like the opposite of post-nut clarity. And as she rejects his offer and goes for a shower, Gus gets a knock at the door, and he opens it to reveal One Eye. Don't ask me how or why in the totally real and definitely not fake town. Full of potential other doors to knock on, he knocks on this one, but after slamming the door in his face thinking it's just a drunk person, Sawtooth knocks this time, and upon answering, the brothers grab him and wrap a rope around his neck. All the while, Lita is in the bathroom, hearing the commotion from the brothers outside, so she grabs a metal rod and hides behind the door. And as One Eye enters the room, she hits him over the head and tries to flee. He grabs her by the legs and pins her to the floor, but she then manages to grab the knife that Julian conveniently dropped earlier. The knife that he planned on taking to the police station, by the way. That's some good thinking right there. And she stabs him in the shoulder and kicks him off. The sheriff's partner arrives at the station to bring her some candles, because the movie is going to need some more people to brutally kill for our viewing pleasure, and just as he's about to leave to bring her back some food, Maynard blows him a little kiss, because he likes the cute ones that can cook. The brothers have taken Gus and used rope to pull his legs out straight. They each pick up a sledgehammer and channel their inner love for Rice Krispies by making his bones snap, crackle and pop. They repeatedly hit him in the legs, until eventually they cave in and bend the way that legs are not supposed to bend. They take the still alive Gus and his Rice Krispied legs and drop him out of the truck in front of the police station, and as he attempts to crawl to safety while screaming out in pain, the brothers circle back in their truck and run him over right in front of the sheriff. Now realizing that Maynard wasn't just attempting to get under their skin, the sheriff lets Billy out of his cell and then deputizes him, Julian and Mose while giving each of them a shotgun. She tells the group how stupid of an idea it is for them to split up, before then immediately splitting up and heading across the street to get access to a generator and a shortwave radio. She manages to get it working and then gets in contact with Danny from that Iron Fist show that everybody forgot about. But as he recognizes the town that she's in, he thinks that she's just trying to prank him due to the local Mountain Man festival. Lita eventually makes it to the police station because, oh yeah, she's a character I totally didn't forget about, but she almost immediately gets her head blown off as a trigger-happy Mose fires through the front door at her. Lucky for her, she's able to keep her head intact, but unlucky for her, she falls right in front of her dead boyfriend's corpse. At least she doesn't have to worry about marrying him now. Billy and Julian then decide to head out to look for Cruz, and eventually do come across her lifeless body, and after having a little cry that you probably would after finding your gutted girlfriend, Freefinger appears to torment the group. Yet despite being in literal touching distance to him, Billy somehow isn't able to shoot him with his shotgun, for his embarrassingly poor marksmanship skills, coming from a Brit whose closest experience to using a gun is a House of the Dead light gun machine. Julian gets attacked from above, and Billy gets knocked out with a shovel. Billy wakes up covered in blood, buried up to his head in dirt, just as Julian wakes up next to him with his legs restrained. I guess they couldn't be bothered to dig a second hole? They hear an engine start up on the opposite end of the field, to then spot Freefinger behind the wheel of a snowblower. And in a scene that is right out of Austin Powers, he slowly but surely accelerates towards Billy as Julian desperately tries to dig him out. But Julian isn't able to free him in time, as Freefinger drives right past the pair before turning around and decapitating him from behind. Julian attempts to run away, but due to the chains around his legs, he falls over and gets slowly devoured by the machine, starting from the feet first until eventually it consumes him entirely. Back at the police station, the sheriff sends Mose to take her truck to get help from the deputies at the festival. But as he's driving, he drives directly through a strip of barbed wire, causing the car to veer off the road and to violently crash into a ditch. Mose wakes up gagged and restrained, because the brothers are kinda freaky like that, before they put him in a barrel, close the lid, and light a fire beneath him. When they said light a fire under your ass, I don't think this is what they meant. They douse the room in fuel and place gas canisters next to the fire. The sheriff can hear the screams of Mose coming from across the street, and as she runs towards the building, it explodes, sending her flying. Is that a bird? Is that a plane? Nah, it's the sheriff. Maynard attempts to convince Lita to let him out of his cell by promising her that when the brothers do arrive, he'll make sure that her life is spared. But I'm not so sure that it's the greatest idea to let the guy out of the cell who's been threatening everyone's life all night, saying that they're all going to die brutally horrific deaths and that their corpses are then going to be eaten. Oh, she's letting him out. The next thing you know, she's walking out of the police station, crying out in pain as both of her eyes have been gouged out of her head. I bet she didn't see that coming. To which the sheriff responds by immediately shooting Maynard and putting him right back in his cell. She then leaves the station to go try and get help herself. Probably should have done that when you had a group full of armed people. But she spots her partner's vehicle parked down the street with him inside. But what she doesn't realise is that the brothers have rigged up a device that will slice open his stomach if the car door is opened. She desperately tries to put his insides back on the, well, inside, but it's about as useful as filling up a colander with water. The brothers then ram into the back of the car, and the sheriff shoots Freefinger in the leg. But Freefinger being Freefinger, she may as well have just shot him with a Nerf gun, as he then proceeds to beat her and drag away her unconscious body. After Lita flees the police station, well, blindly hobbles away from the police station, probably walking into everything along the way, the brothers arrive to free Maynard and tie the sheriff up to the jail cell bars. They douse the building in fuel and rig the sheriff to a device that has a shotgun placed beneath her chin that will fire if she comes off her tiptoes. Maynard was kind enough to give her two options: burning to death or brain exploding to death. Since when did Wrong Turn turn into Saw with all these traps? He lights the building on fire and leaves, and after a few moments of the sheriff screaming out in pain while being burnt alive, there's a sudden bang, followed by only the sound of the raging fire. Lita has somehow managed to make her way out of the town and is walking down a dark road. Well, I guess all roads are dark for her now. She hears a car approaching, and as it pulls up, it's Maynard and the brothers. Without saying a word, they guide her into the car, and right as she sits down next to Maynard, he says to her, "Welcome home, Lita," followed by the harrowing screams as they drive off into the night to await yet another terrible sequel or prequel, whatever the hell this movie was. And then it comes to an end, thankfully. This movie was, certainly something. I've really got to apologise if the entertainment factor in these Wrong Turn movies has started to take a plummet downwards, because honestly after the second one, they've just been so painfully mediocre, dare I say bad. I mean, the fourth one was okay, I guess, but that is really stretching the definition of okay. But like I said before, one more Wrong Turn movie to do, and then we've got a reboot to take a look at, which from what I hear is actually also not that great. But hey, we've made it 5 movies deep so far, so it would be a shame to give up now. Something that I don't usually do is shout out my socials, and as the channel is now starting to grow quite consistently, I thought it'd be nice to send people over to my Twitter and my Instagram as well. So if you want to know what I'm up to or when my silly little videos are going to get posted, make sure you head over to my Twitter or Instagram where you can find that out. The channel does have a Patreon as well, so if you are considering supporting what I do in some form or another, that's an option for you. But obviously don't feel like you need to. For me, I view it as a backup really. Not every video is guaranteed to have a sponsor, and most of my videos do get limited monetization or demonetized anyway, so it mainly just serves as a way for people to lend a helping hand towards the channel. So before I wrap things up, let's say a big thank you to my patrons. Thank you to Dom, Bort, Hunters263, Rebecca Pitts, Total Drama Rebooted, A Dandy in Space, Martin Brannan, Natasha Twyman, Rin and Whiskey, Jarrett C. Bees, Nicholas, Pascal Mathis, @X.Factors, Alex X. Jackson, Fighting the Pirates, Tajvia Sandhu, Victor Kartalov, Richard McGowan III, Kyle York, Eddie Shivink, Macy J, Reese Harford, Horatio, Toby, Jamie Thompson, Raimi Patterson, Chris, Michelle, Newcomb, Fabian, and Dennis. Thank you so much to my patrons, and thank you to everyone else for watching.